Please, Roy, the floor is yours.
Hello, everyone. Thank you, Ofer, and thank you, Michael, for the invitation. I'm really happy to close this season. It was a crazy year, and actually, this is my first seminar as a researcher in the institute. And I thought about it when Asher gave his last seminar as a researcher in the institute. So I'm really excited. So let's jump into the exciting topic of waste management. Usually I like to start my presentation with big picture of food waste or manure or sludge, but today I wanted to do it differently. And it's not because I'm a big fan of our new Minister of Finance, is because I think we are in the in the beginning of a new era in terms of carbon credit, carbon footprint, and I really hope that the new government of Israel actually realize that we have to take responsibility for our carbon footprint, and this responsibility will translate it into a new policy for a carbon tax that will make all our waste to resource dreams more feasible, because at the end of the day, that's what matters, that we have a nice ideas, but we have to make it a reality. And most of the great ideas are failing to be implemented due to the economical rules. So let's go back to my comfort zone with pictures. So food waste, just an example. Food waste is a global issue, is a global challenge, and we can talk hours about food waste, food loss. I don't need to spend too much time on the motivation and introduction, mostly on the invisible problems that we have, that we're facing when we are wasting our food, greenhouse gas emission, loss of good soil, loss of good water, climate change, you name it. And beside of that, we have a lot of money that is wasted that Israel is wasting more than 2 million tons of food, which is 35% of the overall volume. So food waste and waste management is a big concern, and it's a big challenge. So in my talk, I will focus on one technology, the hydrothermal treatment, the hydrothermal processing, however you want to call it, and it's based on the degradation of biomass and subcritical water. So just to be on the same page, I'm sorry for all of you who see me, who watch my presentation over and over, and I'm showing this phase diagram of water, but it's important because this is the base of everything. We are dealing with lots of water when we're talking about manure and food waste and sludge. So the water can be a player, let's say. The water can be a solvent, and based on the change of water above the boiling point towards the critical point, which is 375, the water can be a resource. So unlike dry thermochemical processes that you need to avoid the water, you need to lose the water to get rid of the water, Here, the water is part of the deal, it's part of the treatment. And this is a very, very important point. So what happened to the water in what I call the subcritical region, which is again above the boiling point and below the critical point, let's say between 200 and 350 degrees. The water changed its properties dramatically. You are talking about a decrease, a decline in the dielectric constant and in density, means that you are talking about less polar solvent. And at the same time, we are increasing by 2 order of magnitude the ionic product, or the log Kw of the water, so it's much more catalytic. So chemical reaction that should be catalyzed by the adding a base or acid in room temperature can be auto-catalyzed when we're talking about subcritical region. So this is water at the subcritical region, or subcritical water, and that's the media that we are talking about when we're dealing with hydrothermal processing. So in the lab, we have a nice reactor. It's like a pressure cooker. You can call it a pressure cooker, but it's much higher than your kitchen pressure cooker, because it has to be able to work under pressure of 200 megapascal. 200 bar, 20 megapascal, which is the highest towards the critical point. However, we're talking about very, very short reaction, which is important in terms of engineering. Short reaction means small reactors, and it's in terms of money, it's important. So we have biomass, different kind of biomass. We have our reactor, and from each reaction, we are having 4 different phases. Solid, we call it hydrochar. Crude oil, which is a very hydrophobic liquid. We have aqueous phase, or processed water, and we have a small amount of gas that we dealing with. The game here is in terms of mostly for energy application, is to retain all the carbon while losing or removing most of the oxygen. That is the way to make a good fuel from biomass, from let's say 30% oxygen down to 10% oxygen, while the carbon increasing from 30% to more than 70%. So you are carbonizing your biomass, reducing the amount of oxygen, and make your product much more attractive for fuel utilization, for energy utilization. So the first story I want to present is sustainable livestock farming, I call it, and this is a collaboration with our colleagues here in the VAR from the animal science, Miri Cohen-Zinder and Ariel Shabtai, working in the beef cattle section, and it's a part of the model farm that you are familiar with from Yael's talk, I guess. And again, beef is probably the most challenging in terms of its footprint, because the amount of carbon or CO2 equivalent per kilogram of food, when you're talking about a feed, is substantially higher than all the rest. And again, this figure we can talk more than an hour just to understand each point that is that we're having here. But what I want you to take from this picture, in addition to the fact that beef has a high carbon footprint, 60 kilogram per kilogram of food of beef, is that the highest portion of this footprint is contributed by the farm. See here, you can see each part of the life cycle of the food contribution to the footprint, and the farm compartment contribute the most in terms of beef, and that means everything that happens in the farm, and everything that happens in the farm is also waste management. So before I want to show you the data about our technology, I just want to make some kind of back of the envelope calculation for fun, because 60 kilogram of carbon or CO2 equivalent per kilogram of beef is a number. Honestly, I don't understand this number. I don't know if it's high or low, and I want to translate it to something that I can understand. So let's take 1,000 head of feedlot, which is, I don't know if it's the average, but it's something that it's a practice that that we have a lot in Israel. 1,000 head feedlot of beef cattle, and if we are talking about 1,000 head, each animal is raised up to 500 kilogram. From 500 kilogram, based on the knowledge of my colleagues, you can get about 300 kilogram of beef. And if you just multiply this number by 60 kilogram of CO2 equivalent, you end up with 1,800 tons of CO2 per year, which is another number that I don't understand. I don't know if it's high or low. So that's why we have calculators in the internet. And just for fun, I put 18,000 metric tons of CO2 equivalent and wanted to see what is equivalent to. And it's about 3,000 or 3,900 passenger vehicle that is on the road in a year. So just remember this number: 1,000 cows equivalent to 3,900 cars on the road. So I told you that most of it is in the farm. Most of the 60 kilogram per kilogram carbon footprint is contributed by the farm. So that's actually motivated us to try to return some of the energy that you have lost, that you have waste in the farm. So if we're talking about energy and the cow, you're talking about food coming in, heat going out, releasing from the animal, and you have CO4 or CH4 methane that releasing from both sides. And what we are trying to do is just to return some of the energy from manure back to the farm, and by that to optimize the overall energy balance and perhaps to reduce some of the carbon footprint of this operation. So we took manure from the farm. We wanted to see the technology, to test the technology at different temperature, 200, 250, and 300 Celsius degree. And here you can see the carbon recovery in the product. The hydrochar, the solid product in black, the crude oil in red, and the rest in blue. The blue is not actually part of the game in this story. and you can see that the higher the temperature, the higher the crude oil production, the lower the hydrochar production in terms of carbon again, and overall, the higher the energy, the higher the temperature, the higher the energy return from all products. We wanted to also to check the quality of the product. We have here two energy products, biocrude oil and hydrochar, and we checked it in the analyzer. We wanted to see how much energy we have there. So to estimate the energy content, we have to estimate the carbon and the oxygen and the hydrogen. And here we can see a Van Krevelen diagram that shows you the reduction of oxygen for different products, for different temperatures, with the reference of other crude oil or biodiesel. And you see that you reduce the oxygen dramatically into the region of crude oil and biodiesel. And the similar we can do for the hydrochar, like consider it as a solid fuel. And also here we saw a trend with the higher the temperature, the higher the oxygen removal and the production of more lignite like material, while the 200 and 250 hydrochar were mostly like peat. And here you can see in the same picture actually the degradation of the plant, the lignocellulosic material, which is nice to see and nice to see that it meets the literature. So the lignin is actually degraded only above 250 degrees. So if we have a high lignin material such as in manure, and we want to degrade the lignin, we have to operate it in more than 250 C. So that's the story of hydrochar and biocrude oil energy product from manure. That's actually a reason, or that motivated us to do like an energy balance for all the three temperatures. So if you take a look here, somehow my pointer is not okay. Sorry. Anyhow, if you take a look at the 200C in red, you see that most of the energy is in the char product, and when you look at the 300C temperature, you see that most of the product is in the crude oil. So this is a very useful information for further optimization based on the requirement and based on the capabilities of the customer. In general, you see that also from the energy recovery, the higher the temperature in blue, you have less energy that is wasted as water, while most of the energy in 200C, you have a significant amount of energy that still remains in the water. And we will talk about this water in few slides. To close that story, we wanted to do an overall energy balance, and this is a frequent question that I'm asking every time for this technology, because again we must remember that we invest energy in the process, in order to get this crude oil or hydrochar or whatever. So an energy balance demonstrate that we actually invest 2 to 3 times lower amount of energy than the energy is returned. So the energy return on investment is 2 to 3, and more than that, we can calculate, we can estimate the amount of energy, the net energy that we can generate by applying this technology in a feedlot. So if the plot here is megajoule per calf per day, and when we want to estimate the energy balance per 1,000 heads, we are generating about between 40 to 60 gigajoule per day from a feedlot. And that's about 12 to 16,000 kilowatt hour per day. So if we're gonna come back to our calculation, let's take now 16,000 kilowatt hour per day. It's about almost 6 million kilowatt hour per year. And I hope you're still with me, but what I want you to take from here is that when you put that huge number in our calculator, you end up with about 900 passenger car. And if we started with 4,000, we are saving 20%, 22% of the carbon, 22% of the virtual cows that we have in the road from a 1,000 head feedlot. And I think it's a lot. So I don't know if Lieberman will see that slide or this kind of calculation, he might be happy. Another let's say incentive for this kind of treatment or technology is just the fact that some of our sludges, such as biosolids, the waste activated sludge from wastewater treatment plant, cannot be applied as we used to apply them in the past, because we have new regulation. And I don't want to talk about the regulation. Again, it's a subject for another seminar. But this is again part of the new era that I said about. We have to be on the same page with Europe, with the OECD, and that's probably the reason that we have new regulation, new taxes, new policy that brings us to the fact that we must be more creative when we are dealing with sludge. In this picture, you can see the digestate from a biogas plant, from an anaerobic digester that used to be spread as is on land, and it's a source of soil contamination and soil losses. So we have to take responsibility on that, and I think this is another point to convince you that such a technology should be at least studied. So we go now to this story of energy recovery from sludge, and this is a project of my master student Osama, and with working together with Dr. Rubia Gaur from India, a postdoc in our lab, and they did a great job of taking waste activated sludge from a local wastewater treatment plant and after treated in the hydrothermal reactor, understand deeply the characteristic of almost every product in the process. So in this story, we decided not to focus only on temperature, like the story with manure. We wanted to see also the time effect, and we actually saw that this is dual. We have a dual effect of time and temperature on the conversion yield. In this figure, you see the time in the x-axis, the temperature in the y-axis, and the color is the conversion of the biomass into hydrochar in this point. And you see that this is the treatment is affected both by temperature and by the time. So if we're talking about time and temperature, there is another term called reaction severity or severity factor that actually trying to simplify the effect of time and temperature on the process. So if we're talking about 200 and up to 300 C, and 30 minutes up to 120 minutes. In terms of severity, is like a range from 4 to 8. And surprisingly, we saw that this is severity dependent. So again, you already know this diagram, the Van Crevelen diagram, atomic O to C versus atomic H to C. And you look at the change in the properties of biomass, mostly due to the removal of oxygen. And the removal of oxygen is affected by the severity of the reaction. And this is a very important thing to remember. However, regardless the severity, we saw that anyhow we have a lot of carbon remains in the processed water. I promised to talk about the processed water. So processed water is the bottleneck of this technology, because this is something you have anyhow, because everything is in water. The media is water, is subcritical water, and if you have carbon or other substances in the water, you have to know what to do with this, because you don't want to shift your contamination elsewhere. So we actually recognize that we have 10 to 50% of the carbon still in the processed water. And what we decided to do is to see if we can degrade, if we can use this processed water in anaerobic digestion system. Why? Because we have anaerobic digestion system anyhow in the wastewater treatment plant. So if we have sludge from the wastewater treatment plant, and we generate hydrochar, and we still have processed water, the processed water can go back to the digester that is locally available, and we can gain more energy from the hydrolyzed carbon in the processed water. So that's what we did in the lab. We run the reactor, separate the water, separate the oil from the water, clean the water, and digest it with in a biomethane potential assay. In that, we set up a methodology to be able to quantify the biomethane potential based on the first and second derivative of the function of the degradation of or the production of methane over time. And you see here a clear pattern, and each one of these plot is a different severity, means different temperature and time. And you see that the higher the severity, means the higher temperature and the longest time, you see the worst or the lousiest methane potential, the lousiest anaerobic digestibility of this processed water. While when we're talking about low or even mild severities, means 200, 250 even, you are still talking about a relatively high methane potential, which is another source of renewable carbon, renewable energy back to the wastewater treatment plant. So this is another way to look at it from the energy balance. What I want you to take from here is the processed water from different temperature, and you see that the lowest temperature brings you the highest methane from the anaerobic digestion, and the highest temperature, the 300 C, brings you the lowest methane and the highest residual digestate. So what I want you to take from here is the fact that, again, this is a useful tool for the wastewater treatment plant to decide what kind of process they would like to adopt. Again, while the highest motivation is that they are treating the sludge. They don't need to transport the sludge elsewhere. Mostly now, since they don't have, it's not that they don't have, they have less customers to their sludge based on the newer regulation. So just, another, calculation to convince you that this can be implemented and maybe attractive now in the new carbon rules, the carbon tax. When we did the same calculation that we did for manure, and we simulate different wastewater treatment plant. This is for Shafdan. This is the amount of wastewater treated in the Shafdan. You end up with a significant number of CO2 equivalent that can be saved if you implement this kind of technology on site. Okay, now I want to discuss a little bit about the other benefit that you may gain by having a hydrochar from biomass, from sludge. So far we talked about energy, a lot of energy calculation, energy balances, but let's focus now on the agronomic benefits that we may have from using hydrochar. Okay, so hydrochar is more than carbon, and I put Osama's picture again just to remind myself to credit him, because this is his thesis, co-advised with Yael Aor. And hydrochar is more than carbon. It has a lot of chemical, biological, and physical advantages. I cannot talk about everything today. I will focus on some chemical issues, chemical benefit we may find in converting sludge into hydrochar. But again, biological and physical aspects are currently studied and currently investigated with collaboration of many other researchers. So from the perspective of nutrients, Osama found that more than 90% of the phosphorus, the total phosphorus, is remained in the hydrochar. And this is a very important thing to remember, because most of the phosphorus that you have in wastewater is actually remains in the sludge. So if we retain all the phosphorus, we have a new source of phosphorus. And phosphorus is something that we have to start thinking about renewable sources of phosphorus. And in addition, we saw that the nitrogen recovery behaves differently. Unlike phosphorus, nitrogen can be evaporate or hydrolyzed or be in the liquid form of the treatment. So here you see that the phosphorus and nitrogen recovery for different temperature, the y-axis, and different time, and the x-axis, and you see that they behave differently. This is having phosphorus is nice, but if we want to apply it for agricultural purposes, we have to check the availability. And we saw that most of the phosphorus that we detected in the lab was only extracted in the HCl solvent. So we did like a extraction, sequencing extraction with different solvent, with water, with bicarbonate, with NaOH, and with HCl, and in all hydrochar from all different severities, above 90% was in the HCl soluble, which is actually disappointing, because it's only marginally available to the plant. We also saw that we saw a pattern that the higher the severity, the higher that HCl soluble fraction, and that brings us to the sintering process of high temperature and high pressure that may cause this behavior or this pattern. However, we must take into account that this might also have other forms of phosphorus, such as the polyphosphate, and this is currently studied with Ranerel. And this is not, we're just starting to understand actually the availability of phosphorus in this product. Interestingly, we saw some kind of similar pattern for nitrogen. Similar because we saw less inorganic compound, less ammonium and nitrate in the high severity comparing to the low severity. And let's say above, between 88 to 93% of all nitrogen was not detected as ammonium or nitrate or nitrite. So the first idea was this is an organic compound. It can be proteins, heterocyclic N-rings, pyrazine, whatever. All these organic nitrogen compounds that are not necessarily available to the plant. However, also here, we're just starting to understand the behavior, because we might find some of the ammonium attached to the hydroxyapatite that is produced in the process. So it's a complex story of calcium, phosphate, and nitrogen that may be a source for a different material, a different product. Again, I cannot tell you that right now because we don't know it yet, but this is the current research at this point. So what we know now is that we have hydrochar. We have we produce hydrochar with about 3 to 4% phosphorus, 2 to 3% nitrogen, and a relatively higher carbon to nitrogen ratio. So if we started with 8.5 in the sludge, carbon to nitrogen ratio, we end up with 14 to 22 C2N ratio. And this is brings us to the biological benefit that we may have here, because high C2N ratio can be can be advantage in terms of biological process in the soil. It can be very relevant to organic platforms, and with the addition of nitrogen, phosphorus, and other benefit that we may have in this process, in this product, that might be some kind of attractive product to agriculture. This is just an example of having or trying to get the best out of both worlds, both application, energy, and agriculture. Because if we take the sludge, we hydrolyze it, or we carbonize it into hydrochar, we end up with 3 to 5% of total phosphorus that can be combusted for energy, and you will be you will have a residual ash of 4 to 9% of phosphorus. This is a resource to continue to try to continue to extract the phosphorus, again, from renewable resource 24/7. The wastewater treatment plant is working and producing this material for us. So just to summarize, we found that we have phosphorus intensification. We're dealing with, these days we are dealing with understanding the nitrogen, understanding the water holding capacity, looking at the carbon sequestration that we may find in this material, or with application of this material in a long term. I didn't show you the slide, but we also saw microelements that are intensified and can be returned to the soil. And you know, the invisible benefit is that we're talking about on-site sludge treatment. Means that we can save transportation costs to the wastewater treatment plant, pathogen removal and organic micropollutant. This is a good or big issue when we're talking about secondary sludge. And this will be the last 5 minutes of my talk. I want to talk about the microplastic compartment, and only because sludge is also a source of microplastic. I'm not going to talk about, I'm not going to give you a whole seminar about microplastic. That can be next year, but just remember that sludge itself is a source of microplastic in the soil, from all the plastic that you have in the wastewater treatment plant, including fibers from laundry. Intensive application of sludge can be also a source of microplastic contamination. And that brings me to another project that I didn't thought I will talk about, but since we have it, since I have this transition, I want to give only few slides of that. And this is the plastic project recently funded by the BARD, is with our PhD student Ran Darzi from the Technion, co-advised with Yael Dubovsky. And what we did in this project is separately from sludge and from manure, we just took polymers, pure polymers, different kind of polymers from different families, and look at their behavior in the hydrothermal domain. And here I want to just focus on one polymer, which is the polyethylene terephthalate, which is relevant to the sludge because most of the microplastic from sludge is actually polyethylene terephthalate. Luckily, with polyethylene terephthalate, we had a big success because polyethylene terephthalate is a polyester that in the hydrothermal condition is actually depolymerized into terephthalic acid. Terephthalic acid is one of the monomers of polyethylene terephthalate. Again, don't worry, I'm not going to talk about plastic now. Just take one take-home message from this slide that you can actually degrade polyethylene terephthalate in subcritical water and bring back terephthalic acid. And this is an important issue when you have sludge that might be contaminated with polyethylene terephthalate. We also look at the degradation or the reaction pathways because we also were able to detect the gas from the process, and we end up with this map, and we found out how polyethylene terephthalate is actually depolymerized into terephthalic acid, which is a big thing to the plastic, but it's also to the plastic industry, but it's also a big thing for sludge. So that's it. I want to summarize the talk. We saw that clean technologies such as the hydrothermal are required to generate renewable resource using waste stream of intensive animal farming, manure, or wastewater treatment plant, the sludge. The hydrothermal technology can be implemented to both feedstock, and I showed you that we can recover multiple deliverable products and in different reaction severities. We found positive correlation with energy return with temperature, with reaction severity. And we found a negative correlation when we try to convert the processed water to methane, to biomethane via anaerobic digestion. In terms of agronomic benefit, we saw that most of the macro and micro element I haven't shown you, but believe me, are retained in the hydrochar, but in different availability levels. Phosphorus intensification range between 26 to 68. Also was severity dependent, but most of the phosphorus was acid soluble fraction, and this actually should be we have to take care of that issue in terms of plant availability. I also showed you that the hydrothermal domain is a useful treatment for depolymerization of PET, polyethylene terephthalate to terephthalic acid. And this is critical to the risk of microplastic from sludge, from biosolid. So the take home is that assuming that the global population will continue to grow and animal farming will continue to expand, we have to adopt resource recovery system for sustainable food production. Resource recovery from wet waste stream using hydrothermal can be considered to minimize the carbon footprint, and this will help us to allow food security and to mitigate climate change. And from the circular economy perspective, we demonstrate that the hydrothermal treatment has a big capacity to recover multiple products. And with that, I want to end, to finish, to have question, and to thank again my group in VEYAR, all our colleagues here from the animal science section and from other section in the VEYAR that helps me during this great time of the beginning and of a new researcher in the ARO. Thank you.